The Ole Miss Rebels, of course, looking to get back on track, and they are back at home. And after a week off, the reset for the second half of the season, and it starts with Oklahoma in town. That's a noon Eastern time game on ESPN, and of course, 11 local. And this is our show that we present to you each and every week right here at the Voice of College Football, Rebels Live, with Leanne Herring. Leanne, how you doing today?
Doing good, doing good. Sorry, we're a little bit late on the show. We're coming live. I'm on the road recruiting. Big game tonight here in Texas. Number 24 Tascasita going against number 8 North Shore. It's going to be a big game. Of course, somebody's going to go home sad because both these teams, I believe, are 7-0. So somebody is going to have their undefeated streak be shambled tonight. But live here from the beautiful cigar shop here in the Heights. Stop to have a little bit of a break, a little bit of a smoke so we can talk some football, like you said. Rest, rejuvenated, but it's time to get back on track for the Rebels. This is really after an ugly situation in LSU, you can't help but look forward, and the Rebels indeed have to look forward. And like we said, and we've talked about, the goal here is to win out because there really is no other option there. And so hopefully this week we can see that the Rebels took their bye week as time to adjust and everything. Oklahoma, of course, is coming into town with its own set sort of chaos, especially offensive firing. Of course, their offensive coordinator. So I think the storyline here is really going to come down to which offensive line can be built here. So let's get to going and see where we want to start. We can start with Oklahoma, Ole Miss. There's a lot to talk about.
Well, why don't we start at home? We'll start with the Rebs. And of course, so we got a team that is, again, they get that breather, they get that reset to assess things, see where they stand coming off that brutal overtime loss against LSU. And now they have no room to air the rest of the season if the playoff is going to be in consideration. And so what would you like to see out of this team on Saturday and throughout the rest of the season that maybe we didn't see over the first 6 or 7 games?
Well, when you go back and look at the film, Kentucky had the blueprint to be able to dismantle, what's always been a potent offense for Lane Kiffin and Jackson Dart, and LSU, was a close game. And I think as I've said from the jump that, it's not about the Ole Miss offense falling apart or the defense just in this horrible train wreck. But again, it's the details. When you make enough slip ups, those slip ups add up. And I think that's what we've seen from Ole Miss. It hasn't been that there's been this just gigantic misstep. It's just a lot of things that haven't been done right. But I think ultimately for the Rebels, I want to see them get back to what they do best, and that's run the football. That because by running that football, I believe it will open up the passing game. But again, I really believe that it boils down to, can this offensive line, despite its injuries, despite it not having all its key components, I'll talk about it again. The loss of Jaden Williams at left tackle has been very difficult for the Rebs. We see it, it's just much like what we've seen about the Oklahoma Sooners. When you don't have that left tackle, when you don't have that protection up front, Jackson Dart can't do what he does. So as much as we want to say Jackson Dart's been off, a lot of it has been with that offensive line not being able to click, being plagued with injuries. And, you talk about Lane Kiffin, you talk about his passing game prowess, but it's always been his rushing attack that finishes top half of the SEC. And I really, really think that not only do I, but I think the Ole Miss Rebels want to see more of using Boo Bentley in there. But I think we just need to, I'm going to go back to it. I feel like Peter the Repeater here, Mark, but really running the ball, opening up the run game will help open up the passing game. But I think we really just need to do a better job of protection up front so Jackson Dart can get back into his own. But again, despite the injury list, despite, being out wide receivers and whatnot, in this case, Ole Miss has a lot of go-to guys that we know, and young guys that we know will step up, but we have to be able to give them that opportunity. And I really think that's what's separating Ole Miss is just, having to clean up the little mistake and pay attention to details in this one. But they did struggle in the trenches against LSU. And I think, and it was a difficult situation to watch. But again, this wasn't because this misstep of this offense or something's falling apart. I know that we've heard a lot of chitter chatter within bye weeks, which tends to happen, especially coming off a 29-26 overtime loss to the Bayou Bengals that, should we get rid of Charlie Weiss and this, as offense coordinator? I'm going to sit here and defend as much as you want to blame it on a coordinator, as much as you want to blame it on a coach, I always say, well, then who do you want to get right here in week 9 that's going to replace and redo BC? Because Oklahoma's going into this situation. I mean, they have former Rebels tight end coach Joe John Finley kind of, being thrown in here, and he's not going to reinvent the wheel in less than a week. So that's my thing. I don't think that the offense that Lane Kiffin is running is played. I just think that we need to gel and put pieces back together in order to be able to make this operate and have better ball distribution. I think I'll go back and say it. I think when South Carolina, that was the key recipe. When we used that ball distribution and we ran the ball and it opened up the passing game. We don't need this offensive line to be elite like the Ole Miss defense, but we do need it to be a lot better than it has been in order to withstand against Oklahoma defense. Because like I said, Brent Venables is a heck of a defensive mind, and he can give us all sorts of trouble if this offensive line continues the way that it played, in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, there are the results, which just simply say 5-2. But then there's the evaluation of the results, meaning that, yeah, the effort against Kentucky was disappointing, or the result was more disappointing than the effort. And not talking about the physical effort of the players, but just in regards to execution. One play there. Okay. Death Valley, LSU, overtime game. Ole Miss left a ton of points on the field, especially in the first half. One play. They are 2 plays away from being undefeated. So your record is what you are. That we know the old saying that your record is what you are. However, they didn't lose these games by 5 touchdowns. They lost by 1 play twice, and there's still a lot to play for. Now they have no margin for error. Taking it a bit off the field to where most Ole Miss fans' heads are at this point. Is this a surly fan base? Is this a bit of an angry fan base, or do they understand that, hey, we're not happy that we lost these 2 big games, but we get it. It's been that close.
I don't think it's so much angry fan base and they're ready to turn, but I think that Ole Miss has come so close and they've been knocking on the door. And I think it's always harder when you are in the SEC and that, like you said, we were just 1 play away at Kentucky, 1 play, when we played Kentucky, 1 play away at LSU. And I think that's more difficult because again, I feel like it's flashbacks to anybody who's been a long-standing with Ole Miss fan, when we've knocked on the door and we've had these really great seasons with not even the kind of personnel that we walked into this season with. And it's like we blow it all away. And I think that's what they kind of retract to. I said, are we going to do the same thing? And I think that's kind of where that kind of stems for that issue. But again, it's like you said, it's not like the offense and defensive playbook are falling apart. It's not like what's going on Oklahoma. But the only thing is while Oklahoma's offense is falling apart, my worrisome in coming in this one is that they have enough personnel on their defensive front to shut down our offensive front. So again, I think right here is it's going to be the storyline of 2 offensive lines trying to not be elite, but try to keep both their teams enough. Because again, like I said, there's all sorts of plague on that Oklahoma offense that we'll talk about. But again, there's enough for that that Oklahoma Sooner defense to give us trouble. And I think that's where the worries are. And again, it goes back to the little details. These games weren't big blowouts. It's not like we're doing something wrong. I don't think that we're doing the wrong kind of play calling. I just believe that things aren't clicking. And so now this bye week, you have to also, I believe that there was probably a lot of, self-study, self-evaluation to see what we can do. Because again, these weren't big hiccups, but enough little hiccups, can cost you big games like they did in the case of Ole Miss.
Yeah. So for anybody out there that's watched Oklahoma play the last few times out, it's been a rough go. So we got our 1 point of comparison would be the South Carolina game, of course. And so Ole Miss went to Columbia and took care of business rather easily, 27-3. Oklahoma just played South Carolina last week, and wow, that was a pick'em game basically. And South Carolina ran them out of the building. They had 2 defensive touchdowns in the first quarter and won 35-9. Oklahoma scored 3 points the week before against Texas. And wow, they needed a miracle in the last 4 or 5 minutes to score 3 times and beat Auburn because they were down a couple scores in that game late. as Leanne alludes to, they've lost their top 5 wide receivers, and one of them, I know Deion Burks was listed as questionable.
And
Uh,
now he's officially been announced as that he's not going to be out.
oh,
So I
he's
mean,
out.
if you think
Okay.
about it, they're pretty much up a paddle and are going to have to make a miracle because again, you got a new OC stepping in there. Jackson Arnold, as elite as has been and everything, he hasn't had the best game. Of course, he was benched. They went with the other guy, and then they're back to Jackson Arnold. There was even talk about, are we going to redshirt Jackson Arnold? We're going to save it, but we all saw that went out the window when he went in for that 5th game and that start. But again, like I said, just because I think we have to also understand that we can't go into this game with our guard down. We have to pretend like Oklahoma's got their stuff together, even if it's in chaos, because those are the games I tend with that where Ole Miss doesn't always have a strength mentally. Physically, we can hang with them, but I also believe that we don't talk about the mental game enough. And I know that, like I said, on the bye week, the loss to LSU, there's that negativity, there's that chitter chatter, and sometimes that can feed into your players. But we also see that we can't use Oklahoma's distress as a means that it's going to be an easy game, because it by no means is going to be an easy game. Jackson Arnold, could surprise everybody and be coming in with a chip in his shoulder and say, what, I'm going to try to prove something. We've seen there's just been so many instances in this college football season already where when you're not expected to win or when your program's in chaos is where you play your best ball. So we also have to expect, despite the chaos and the storms that's going on with the Oklahoma Sooners. I mean, they could be with vengeance coming into Oxford and, trying to make a statement and trying to kill the dreams of the Ole Miss Rebels and Lane Kiffin. So there's just so many scenarios, Mark, that we could talk ourselves into. But again, this is not a game that the Rebels can take lightly by any means from here on out, because like I said, this is all or nothing, because I believe if we lose this one, that 9-3, I know people have talked, well, there's that, no, there's no glimmer of hope. If we go 9-3, even with a win, win against Georgia, I believe that this is the last straw for Ole Miss as far as playoff contention if we lose to Oklahoma.
There it is. Leanne said it. Mark it down. I would agree. I'm not going to in any way go against that, because yeah, an Oklahoma loss would just be, this is a team that's probably headed toward 5-7, Oklahoma. And that would just be too brutal to the resume to take that on, even with a win against Georgia. So, yeah, it's a narrow path for the Rebels, but that's what they've got to face now. And I'm sure the players are well aware that their season's on the line each and every week now. That's the position that they're in, and there's got to be a level of excitement and adrenaline pumping when that's the case, because you can't take a week off. You need to be ready each and every week.
No, no doubt. And like I said, I think that the bye week for the Rebels couldn't have come at a better time, because I think had we had to go and take Oklahoma, or let's say we would have had to go in Arkansas on the road, I think it would have been very chaotic, because like I said, I think with the injuries that are plaguing, I really think with the issues on the offense is this offensive line. And I think that, having time to rest and try to see what we can shuffle around is really, I mean, I know that people probably want this huge breakdown and all these stats and all these things about it, but the problem really is, I mean, the solution is a lot simpler, I think, than we try to make it. Like I said, I don't believe that Charlie had they made some questionable calls, yes, but any coach is going to make questionable calls, because as much as you can study the analytics, as much as you can study the film on a team, game time, game situations, the adrenaline, so many other factors that we don't get experience, that we only get to see from the press box or from the sidelines, that we don't understand. So yeah, there's questionable calls. Do we agree with some of the calls that Lane and make? But we're not out there calling the game, and we're not getting paid the 6-figure salaries by any means. But again, like I said, I really do believe that the Ole Miss offense will get back on track if we can get this offensive line back on track. And again, it's not about being as elite, but I do believe that this will be another dress. We'll be talking about recruiting here in a short bit. But I do believe, just like when Lane Kiffin came in, he's going to and made a run to go recruit defensive players, especially defensive linemen. I do believe that when we get closer to December, as we get closer to the portal opening, that the offensive line will be another key thing that we will start recruiting, because I mean we're seeing it right now. When you don't have depth at the offensive line, you can't win games if you can't win them in the trenches.
Folks, we'll take your comments and questions there in the chat. Keep in mind the super chat contribution. And also, we're going to flip the script at 4 p.m. Eastern time and talk Oklahoma. Of course, they're playing Ole Miss, so it might be similar show, but we got Jason Ray for that one. I'm going to go way off script here. Where did the love of cigars come from? Where did that start?
Uh, I just always thought that they were really neat. My grandfather kind of taught me, I guess because I've always kind of been in a male-dominated field with sports, and people are always smoking cigars, and it just kind of become between my hats and my cigars are kind of my signature. Yeah. So, and when I was in Oxford, there was really great cigar shops that were like home for me, and it's kind of like a zen and a peace, you know. And I appreciate all the guys that are in here hearing our show, you know, that they're accommodating us, because I'm sure not all of them are Ole Miss fans. But anyway, no, that's so it just kind of happened. It's kind of just grown on me. It's always kind of been my signature, like my hat.
I got a hold of a old, well, it wasn't old at the time, but a tobacco can, like a really big one, when I was a little kid, and I just left it
Yeah.
on my dresser because I love to pop it open and just it smells so good.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's got a great smell to it. I mean, the humidor, I get to stare, it's right in the corner. So after I'm done with this one, probably go get another one before I have to go scout some high school football, which is going to be exciting. Like I said, big matchup here in Houston tonight.
No doubt. No doubt with that. All right, the Ole Miss show, we're going to find a home, a better home for it each and every week. So blame me this week. That's the reason why we're here on Friday. So I know that we're trying to settle things down and get a permanent home. We've been on Wednesdays, we've been on Thursdays. Here we are on Fridays. So we
But
will,
you get, hey, it's Ole Miss. You never know. It's like a grab bag for Ole Miss, you know. So we try to keep it going. But yeah.
no doubt. No doubt. So again, we do appreciate you being here. We're going to run down the SEC. We're going to look at recruiting. Again, Ole Miss is a 20.5 point favorite. That's noon Eastern. That's 11 Central on ESPN. And again, we're going to talk Oklahoma side coming up here in a couple hours. All right. Yeah, this game tonight. Who in particular are you scouting, and what storylines are you following?
Storylines are following. This is the second time we're back in Houston, looking after Carday Mack. We are recruiting him as a running back, but the last 2 seasons, he's actually been anchoring this Atascocita team at the quarterback position. So he's not your ideal stereotype quarterback height or anything, but man, this kid is just when you see him, calm, cool, collected, very commanding, very how can I say it? He's good under pressure, because there's been several times when his team has been down, but you know, I've seen him drive with 33 seconds, game on the line, you know. So it'll be really exciting to see. So yeah, we're here to see him tonight. Now, he was scheduled to when I talked to him last time I saw him when we were in Houston, he was scheduled to make the trip to Oklahoma for the Oklahoma game, but hopefully tonight, he's not sure if he'll make it. So hopefully tonight we'll have an answer for the Ole Miss Rebels. That'll be a surprise. There's a lot, you know, not only is it a big weekend for redemption weekend in the SIP for our team in Lane Kiffin, but also another opportunity on the recruiting trail for us, because you know we're almost close to November, which means we're hips, you know, skip away from early signing period, where a lot of crucial stuff happens, where it means things are going to get chaotic. So as much as we also want to talk about the game, we have to build for the future. So each game that we have, you know, a lot of A-listers are coming in, playmakers, a lot of our 2025 commits, along with some, you know, 25 commits from other colleges that are coming in to come see what's going on. And then a plethora of 4 and 5-star coming in from the class of 2026. I wish I could go down the full list, but it's pretty heavy. But again, it's another big stage for Lane Kiffin and his staff to be able to open eyes for some of the best players in the country, not just out of Texas. But yeah, tonight our sole focus is going to be on Carday Mack, anchor, you know, running back at the collegiate level. But like I said, getting this team like number 24, trying to go 8-0 in hopes to get to that state championship here in Texas in his class and everything. Like I said, just extremely athletic shifter because his, when you watch him and you see him maneuver him with his running back, body type along with his center of gravity, it's so low to the ground, Mark. And he reminds me so much of Barry Sanders just when you see him work. It's just ridiculous how well he gets in there. Like I said, you can definitely see why he's successful at the quarterback. Not only can he command his offensive line, which is a little bit more towering than he is because he's about 5'11", so maybe a little bit under that, but that's what the stat sheet says. So we're going to go with the stat sheet. So he's not, like I said, not your stereotypical quarterback, but what he's done leading this team, it just goes to show volumes because with a place like Atascocita, that's another powerhouse here in Texas. When you get a kid like that whose signature style is a running back, and you're putting all your him to run your team as a signal caller, definitely dig. Like I said, he'll be exciting to watch, and hopefully we'll get him here to Oxford soon. But yeah, like I said, it's going to be a one-man show, a lot of talent. North Shore is filled with talent. Of course, you can't talk about North Shore without talking about Ohio State 5-star cornerback Devin Sanchez. He will there being all full force trying to stop. But like I said, someone's dream tonight is going to be 7-1, and someone will go 8-0. So it'll be an exciting game. But again, a lot of opportunity not only tomorrow at the VOT with recruiting wise, but also on the road. And I'm sure a lot of our coaches will be at other games tonight trying to find some talent, flip some talent, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, exciting recruiting weekend. It never ends, but it's definitely glad to be back. So we get a lot of kids to be on site to be able to witness this for themselves.
And so, Leanne, you're calling this running back, what's your nickname for him? You're calling him a what? A lane shifter?
Oh, a shapeshifter. No, I
Shape
call him a
shifter.
shape. Yeah, no, Joe Joke, a shapeshifter. He's just, like I said, his center of gravity is so low to the ground, and his running back background just comes in because when he has the quarterback keep, it's like he almost passed it to himself as a running back because just the way he maneuvers and breaks the line. And like I said, he's not your stereotypical quarterback. He's 5'11", maybe a little bit smaller, and he's just built. He's, like I said, he reminds me a lot of Barry Sanders with his build and his ability. So like I said, he's exciting. But yeah, we're recruiting him as a running back. But hey, if we need him in the Wildcat, and we get him to the SIP, there's a lot that you can do with his talent. Extremely athletic, and extremely gifted leader on the field.
And I'm not just saying this because of your shapeshifter comment, but you got a way with words, definitely. You got some nice little nicknames and slang for these players and all the stuff going on. So you should probably look into being a writer. Maybe you should try that.
Yeah,
No.
I should try
Leanne
that.
is a
Yeah.
writer. That's the joke.
I would, yeah, I should try it. Yeah, I think that my writing background for a long time, yeah, it really helps. But like I said, I try to look at each kid and try to bring traits because I know we can all sit there and say, well, the kid's got a great front step, or he gets off the back, but those are such generic terms. So every time I go see a kid, I want to bring out their best attributes, because I think that they're strong points. And with a kid like Carday Mack, what you gotta love about him is, and I told him this last time, post game. I rarely do I see young kids at his level, at his age, that have such calm and composure. Like when he's off the field, he's there hyping up his team, talking to his team, and just very calm. Like, the game's on the line over here, but in his mind, you can tell he's got it. And I've seen him work and operate. So, like I said, it's always exciting to see. And and it's always fun to come to these games because you see a lot of other players that are diamonds in the rough too, that you want to help but bring up and say, hey, we need to bring them to Oxford. But I really think that I call it the Texas flood, because if you'll notice, if you're looking at our latest offers, we have a lot of great work that's being done by, Randall Joyner, of course, got Texas ties. He's done a great job the last couple of years since he got to Ole Miss, opening up with Texas. And then, of course, one of our ADs, player personnel, DJ Man, has done a fantastic job of opening this pipeline to Texas. And it's really great to see Ole Miss come here, because despite the talent that's in Texas, Ole Miss hasn't always had the best footing since Lane got here as far as being able to tank. But I mean, you can't help but not recruit Texas now that we have OU and Texas involved. I mean, the talent here is just immensely diverse. So it's great to see that Ole Miss is kind of starting this Texas flood, and we'll see how many we get back to Oxford here in the next coming months.
So everybody, you can follow Leanne on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it,
Whatever
right
you want to
there,
call it these days.
whatever you want to call it. I know a few people that they call it Twix, so you can go with
Oh,
that.
that's a good one.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I think we can thank our buddy John Diadamo. He calls it Twix. I think he may have made that up. So, is there anything in particular that's going on that you want to highlight in terms of your articles or anything else?
Well, it's Friday. Like I said, the focus is on recruiting, and we've kind of talked about what the Rebels need to do. I just think that this week is a kind of approach where, and always you can always look at our great team over at the Rebel Walk, Evie and our Zach and Cam, along with Don and everything. Basketball's on the horizon, so I know that's another thing Rebels are excited about. There was that, of course, a couple weeks ago, a little bit of basketball news, that secret scrimmage that Chris Beard played with Houston apparently. So that all those things. So basketball season is in the horizon, but I'm still stuck on football time. But yeah, like I said, Friday nights are always reserved for recruiting. Saturdays are for game days. So that's pretty much where we're at right now. Enjoying, like I said, enjoying my nice pregame cigar before we got a lot of football. But it's never a dull moment.
Yeah, Jim, we see you there. I was going to call it a stogie too, but I didn't know that that was a thing anymore. Do people still call them
People call it
stogies?
that. People call it sticks. Yeah, it just kind of depends where you are. Yeah.
Well, here is where we are with the SEC coming up this weekend. So they're on top, of course, is the Ole Miss game against Oklahoma in Oxford. We've got Arkansas, Mississippi State. Mizzou goes to Bama without Brady Cook, most likely out of that game, and Nate Noel, their top running back at Mizzou. That's the main reason why they are such a huge underdog in that game. Texas at Vandy, uh, a ranked matchup. Who would have predicted that at the beginning of the season? Texas Vandy, a ranked matchup. LSU, Texas A&M, the only two undefeated teams in conference play, and Auburn, Kentucky. Okay, Leanne, what stands out to you?
Well, as much as we've been talking Oklahoma, Ole Miss, I'll start there. While I think that Ole Miss, if they regroup and they took this weekend to fix and tweak those things, I don't like that 20.5 line. I know everyone, all the Ole Miss homers are like, we can cover that. At this point, that's a line that I don't want to take. So I don't really like that 20 points. I think Ole Miss should come out with the win. But again, that Oklahoma defense is going to be tough. And we're not sure how our offense is going to react if we don't have those improvements on the line. So while that's a great number and we should come away that 20.5 points. Now I think the under is like at 49.5. I do like the under in that game. Again, just because I think that with the way this game is situated and see how these offensive line, I don't see it being a high scoring game because it's going to be a game of in the trenches. It's going to come down to which offensive line can improve and who can put more points on the board and whose defense is going to be the one who can make the big stops and put a big press. Of course, that LSU Texas A&M game is always interesting. Texas A&M has kind of got back in an odd sync, and I think that that's going to be a good one. I don't know what the line is on that one. Um, but that's another game that interesting. But yeah, that Texas Vanderbilt game. Who would have ever thought that Texas be 5 and Vanderbilt be 25? You see, it's a close matchup. I like Texas A&M in this one. I think LSU has come and they've played real, but their games have been down to the wire. They've had some sparks, but again, I like Texas A&M at home at Kyle Field on that one. So yeah, it's an interesting week. It's an
Texas,
interesting week. It's just kind of like I'm kind of in one of those perplexed. Like it could go either way. I could probably talk myself into going either way. And I don't like those kind of weeks because I feel like it just goes to show how close matchups can be and how quickly they can turn. Because I felt like we've seen that all the seasons because we're not used to seeing Alabama at 15. We're not used to seeing Vanderbilt even ranked. And then you got LSU. Like I said, LSU started off rough, but it's not how you start right, it's how you finish. So it's one of those weeks for me as far as the SEC matchups where I feel it could go either way. And I think it's as we get deeper and closer to finishing the regular season, it's going to be a game of details. And I think we've seen a lot of these come down to the wire. It's the game of details and a lot of field goals and a lot of special teams.
I posted a video earlier this week. I was looking at all the undefeated teams in the SEC. Again, not overall, but the two teams, Texas A&M and LSU, that play this weekend. They're the only two with no losses. And then there are 4 or 5 teams with one loss. If everyone, now I'm not saying this is going to happen because chalk never holds. There are going to be upsets. However, if Texas A&M beats LSU this week, their only game left on the schedule where they're going to be an underdog is their final game against Texas. Let's say Texas A&M splits those two games. Texas runs the table. Georgia runs the table. And who else did I have? LSU. They lose this game against Texas A&M, but then they win the rest of their games, which they should be a favorite in all of them. I think they have Bama back. Yeah, they've got them back in Death Valley. All four of those teams are going to finish 7-1. There's going to be a four-way tie for first place in the SEC.
That's crazy. And like you said, it's the teams that you would never think of this, with the conferences not being separated. But again, Texas A&M had its starting struggles, LSU had its start, and Texas even still is in the version of its struggles with that quarterback situation that's going on. We saw Texas last week struggle. They put Arch in, and all these teams have its own sense of struggles. But what we've seen all these teams be able to get to this point is that they've cleaned up the messes that they've made and been able to find games to win. Again, at the end of the day, as much as you want your team to cover points, from that aspect, it's about what team can finish, what team can play better, and the more cleaner football, because that's really what it's going to come down to. Because I think what we see in these games is they haven't been these crazy blowouts, except for a few. But what we've seen these games is who can outcondition the other one, who can separate themselves just by a hair. Because most of the bigger games that we've seen, they've been decided by small moments. But again, the narrative has also been because of the mini mistakes, the little mistakes. But like I said, all those little mistakes that you make on the field, whatever it may be, they all end up being, you pay the price big in the end. So it's just, and I think we're going to see a similar to what Oklahoma and, Ole Miss. This is not going to be a cakewalk. Just like I said, we can't bank on the chaos going on in Oklahoma, that's going to be our bread and butter, and we're going to sail it home. Now, we have a lot of momentum, or rest, or relax. Like I said, the bye week could come at a better time to be able to regroup and reevaluate. And I think that's what Lane Kiffin and this ball club have done this past week. So hopefully now they can take what they've done, they're self-studying, they're regrouping on all that, and let that translate. Because at the end of the day, you can practice hard, you can fix the mistakes at practice, but can you translate them in game time situations? Can you translate them when it counts and matters? And can you not make mistakes when it counts and it matters? Because that's really, I think, what's been the biggest thorn in Ole Miss's side, is they haven't played the cleanest football that they can play. You don't need to have this crazy offense with tons of numbers. You want to win the game at the end of the day, so like, that's why I say we just need to go back to what we've been doing, and that's running the ball, and eventually that pass game will open up. But hopefully, like I said, we'll see a little bit of shift in the offensive lineup, kind of trying to see if we can get some of those areas that have plagued us. That way Jackson Dart can get back to operating like Jackson Dart, and then we can get that ball distribution going. Because like I said, we're not as the same situations like what Oklahoma's deal. We can be down 5 wide receivers, but we got running backs, we got tight ends, and that's another thing I would like to see. I would like to see us use the tight ends, because I feel like that would be another separation that could really help Ole Miss in close games, down the road. And I think I hope by Georgia we see more Caden Prescorn or whoever we're going to put in at tight end. But I think that could open up a lot. Like I said, I feel like we have a lot of weapons, we have a lot of ability to do it, but we haven't been translating to that on the field.
Folks, we have a lot of great things in store on our Ole Miss channel, so just hang tight, hang with us, and we've got a lot of things planned. So subscribe to the Ole Miss channel. We've left the link there in the chat. Just trust us. We've got a lot of great things planned, and most of them surround Leanne here. So we're going to lean on Leanne a lot, especially since you mentioned to me just a few minutes ago that National Signing Day is coming up in December. So
it's almost here.
Yeah.
Where's the
Expect a
time
call or
gone?
2 or
I can't
10
believe
from me to say, hey, we need to record something, because I need some insight. I need some knowledge out there. Absolutely. So we do appreciate you all being here at the Voice of College Football. Leanne and I will be live after the Ole Miss game against Oklahoma. So be looking out for that. That's going to be on the main channel. That's going to be on the Ole Miss channel. And we are pushing you, trying to get you over to the Ole Miss channel. So please do that and check it out. The links there in the chat. And again, we will have a set day and time for this show very, very soon. Well, Leanne, have a good
Excited.
time in Houston.
You too, and have everybody hotty toddy, and hopefully, like I said, we'll have some good news for this post game. But again, I think the biggest storylines we're going to come down here is these offensive lines and this offense, and which defense can pull the other one to account. Like I said, that it's not too hard going forward. The answer's right there in front of the face. So hopefully, Lane Kiffin and his ball club took this week to rest, relax, and let's revive some Rebels here in the VOD in Oxford this week.
Folks, we are less than an hour away from our Oklahoma show, so we will talk more Rebels then. See you then.